Yeah, so this talk is about transforming fear, specifically from concepts from a book called Fearvana, which is this intersection between fear and nirvana or bliss, and how they go together. So when we meet edges of fear, we can also have access points to bliss or transformation, or yeah, just greater states of being that you cannot achieve without exploring the fear. So the book is called Fearvana by Akshay Nanavati. And yeah, do you want
Yeah,
to?
well, yeah, we listened to a talk of his, uh, I think week or a few days before the quest, and it was really timely. And he was doing a presentation on concepts from his book and how he uses them for. This is in the context of a business mentorship and kind of success, self motivation type uh, uh, um, environment where he was speaking, and who he was speaking to is people taking business training and stuff like that. And but he touched on a lot of parts of his book, and he was a soldier in the Iraq War in Afghanistan as well, and then um, he had PTSD. He had friends who died in the war, and um, this book I think came from how he managed to come up with a way to manage the grief and the fear and all these things, and what came out the other side. um, and I think fear, and he references it too, it's like a natural thing. It's okay, it happens. Like, it's going to be around us all the time, like we're
And
all in our tents and we hear that rustling. It doesn't matter if it's a mouse or a bald eagle or like a bear, lion, tiger. Like, we're automatically going to be aroused by that. And of course, probably the first thing that's going to pop up is like a fear thought, where it's like, oh gosh, like that's the black bear. I knew it. Like, it's there, and that's okay. But I think it's how we transmute that fear into either like dissolving it, or in this case, in the book Fearvana, he wants you to use that as fuel. So that energy burst you get with fear, it doesn't matter how tired you are. You could be exhausted in your tent, and you're out all day in the sun. You hear that rustling around, you're like, you're peaked. You're everything's ready to roll. Your senses are going. You're ready to, fight or flight, and transforming that energy to motivate you and push you into, I guess, a solution oriented uh, scenario, I guess.
yeah, so you've probably heard fear is false evidence appearing real, right? So there are stories that our mind creates, and going back to that sense that like it is instinctual to have fear, whether that's yeah, what will my body do when I fast? Like that's so valid. Or like big mammals, or you know fear of getting hurt. Like these are all they're normal fears, right? But what I think happens is when they get over exaggerated, and a lot of it comes from, I think, just not having a lot of experience, or the cultural narrative can also create more fear. The stories we believe about ourselves can create more fear. So every fear has its own little style and flavor. But I think just remembering that, like a situation like this, like even a vision quest, like we said it, I think, the other day, it's actually very safe. It's a very safe experience. Um, we often joke that the drive to get to this spot in the backcountry, in some ways could be more dangerous than being out here. Um, and it's all, I mean, I think a lot of fear is very subjective. It goes from our past experiences, stories that have come into our psyche, and then everyone will have predisposition to different fears based on their life experience.
Yeah, and so he tries to get you to understand what fear is, and it could be physical or it could be psychological. So it can be both.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants us to know that where that fear is that's where our opportunity for growth is. So if we're, you know, shaking in our britches in the tent from the mouse rattling around, that's an opportunity for us to be like, oh, okay. Or, you know, it might be back home, it's financial, it's money, you know, like, oh gosh, I'm terrified. I don't want to risk chasing my dream because I'm in a safe place right here. You know, you have a steady paycheck, and then sometimes it makes it hard to go out there and try something new and, you know, risk it all, because now you're scared that, you know, you're comfortable, everything's okay as it is now. It's like, why go chase this big dream when like what I have is okay over here?
And I think with that fear and nirvana paradox, right? Those states are so closely tied, because when we're in a state of fear, for example, let's use like you hear a bear, your body is fully going to go into all of their senses. All your senses are going to be so heightened. You're going to be so present in that moment. Your mind's not going to be drifting off, you know, to that last relationship or whatever. It's going to be, you're just going to be fully in your body. And that's one example. I mean, obviously, we're trying to use examples kind of relative to this. So when you're nervous about a sound, like you're fully in your body. There is no way you cannot be. And that is part of using that shift of where your body goes in a state of fear to shifting it into nirvana.
And I would say, with the example of, you know, coming out here and, oh my gosh, I've never fasted more than a few hours, then you're fully in your psyche, you're fully in your mental awareness. So in that aspect, now you've fully ramped up your mental energy and focus. So now you're in this focus of like, oh, I got to starve out there. Am I gonna get sick? Is something bad gonna happen? And then you're completely in your head, and that's another thing where like it's all heightened, and that's an opportunity to take that heightened awareness and thought process that you're doing and focus that into something else. And then the fear becomes a compass to, okay, what do I need to learn from this?
Mm-hmm. So his framework to Fearvana, it's honestly so simple. It starts with awareness. So you notice your fear. Oftentimes it's helpful to name it and then just be like, hey, I'm in it. Because if we don't know we're in the state of fear, then how do you move forward? There is the chance that the fear gets so big that you just kind of start freaking out. We don't want to get there. So we want to notice the fear, be like, hey, I'm super hungry right now. I'm looking at the sun. I have no idea what time it is. It's day one. Am I going to get it to, will I make it to day 3? You know, like that might come up. Okay, great. Okay, so
And
what's the fear
accepting it,
there?
like having it, getting the awareness but without a judgment
Yeah.
attached to it.
Which is the second. So it's accepting
Well,
that state.
you want to be aware of it and not have a judgment of like, oh, you idiot, or like,
Oh, like that,
oh,
yeah.
what the heck. But yeah, then the next step is, okay, accept that it's okay to be afraid, and that's a natural part of our existence on this planet. If it wasn't, well, you know, you'd probably staring at your cell phone while you're driving, and then, you know, get in a car accident. That's a healthy fear of like, okay, like you see people texting on the highway, they're doing this and they're looking and they're going like this, okay, but up and down. Because if they didn't have a healthy fear and accept that, okay, that's a natural part, they'd just be blah 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 blah. Okay, I'm just driving, whatever. But we know that that's dangerous. Just like, you know, you could be beside a big transport on the highway and be like, oh, okay, like he's swerving. Okay, well, that's fear, and that's okay. That's acceptable. It's natural, but you don't need to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta get off the highway and park my car, and I'm never gonna drive again. That would be like an extreme. Mm-hmm. And then the same with coming out here. It's, you know, like you said, you're almost leaving your freedom behind in a sense, and I would say it's because there's freedom to walk away, but you're almost at the mercy of the guides that you put your trust in, but it's a surrender.
Mm-hmm.
So you surrendered not your freedom, but kind of surrendered yourself to an experience, and then you're kind of just letting it unfold in front of you. And yeah, that could be really, really scary. And
And
then
then the last step is action. And this is probably, for me, this is the best part because you get to choose to move through it. And so there's so many options with this, but a great example, and we see it in fib as well, or with squirrels. So if they run into some type of altercation, right? And then they get scared, what do they do after? And then after that, you probably could do it really well. So like a squirrel, for example, will go, you do it.
oh, they go like they
and
alarm.
And then they alarm and they full body shake. And that's their action. So, right, the squirrel was probably so terrified it was gonna die. Maybe saw Fib. I don't know. I'm just using an example. Fib attacked the squirrel. The squirrel got scared, froze, then realized, okay, I didn't die. Life is good. We're moving on. Did a full body. They call it like penticulation. I think there's like a very scientific word for it, and most mammals do it. They shake themselves to release all that fear that built up because it's very real. I mean, a lot of people experience anxiety with tightness of chest, right? So when we're in our bodies, when we're in a state of fear, the body goes like this. Naturally, everyone, like us as well, you know, like it happens. We start to contract and tense up. So when we can notice it, we don't judge it. And we're just like, hey, I'm super tense right now. I'm nervous. My breath, that's another one, shortness of breath. Everyone is so different. But then we want to do an action. So it could just be, you know, if you're on your quest and something big's coming up, you could stand up and shake your body. It could be a big exhale, like really taking a deep breath in and making like a, like just releasing it. Some people like to like literally imagine shaking it off of their body, but you really want to shift. Because just say I'm in a state of fear and I'm just circling, right? I'm circling, I'm just propelling and fueling the fear. Where sometimes, you know, you just got to get up or something. Everyone's going to have their own style of shifting.
I think a great example is what you guys did to get here. There, I'm sure you went through these 3 steps, right? And like, okay, this vision quest, something about it, I'm interested. And then boom, oh wow, you know, there's bears out there, and then your mind starts going, or you know, maybe a friend's like, wow, how irresponsible are these people, professionals? Or you know, like all the things that will happen and you go, okay, you know, you got aware of it, then you accepted it, like, okay, no, like I want to do this. And then you use that fear of, you know, the what ifs, what could happen, you know, I'm not experienced enough, or I've never done this before, and then you use that fear as a motivator, and that pushed you forward to actually taking the step out here. So that's like, I think, a good example of you guys already did these 3 steps just on getting out here, you know, showing up to our place. That's you know, you had the out to say screw it, like last second you could have been like, no, I'm done. But you probably went through these 3 steps just on the way to us, and then on the way here in the vehicles, you know, like all these. It's so similar to the hero's journey, is you're probably playing through these constantly.
And also it is a little bit different when we're out in, like, let's just say our normal lives, that ordinary life state. There's more distraction. There also could be like other people that you talk things through. Well, on your quest, you'll have way less distractions and no other human interaction, right? So you'll really be in a state where you're sitting with yourself and you're sitting with the land, and it is in some ways a little bit different. But you will find your own way to shift. But I think just remembering that shifting piece. So when you can notice and you're aware of the state, you meet it without judgment. Maybe you name it. You try and understand the root of the fear. Okay, my fear actually of the bear is actually not the bear. It's fear of death. Okay, I'm scared to die. What's the big teacher there? How can I move through that or embody that so that I
Hmm.
don't carry that fear of dying?
Yeah,
So
he
much,
says
so many
transforming
options.
that fear into a positive energy, and then like she just mentioned, okay, it's actually a fear of death.
Hmm.
Okay, why am I scared of dying? And then finding ways to channel that fear into activity that will like align with your goals and your growth.
Hmm.
And on a vision quest is a perfect example, like the fear of death, and then really starting to tease that apart, be like, okay, why am I afraid to die? Is
Hmm.
it unfinished work? Is it the person I didn't say I love you to? Is it, I didn't finish this thing that people are depending on me for at work? Or, like, there's someone who's relying on me to help them out, or maybe it's a family member, or all these things could come up. And then you could tease that apart. Okay, why am I afraid? And then, oh, okay, maybe it is like someone you haven't said goodbye to, or you want to make amends, or maybe it's like this is my passion for the world and my gift, and I haven't brought it back to the world yet, and that's why I don't want to die, because I'd have unfinished business. And then
Hmm.
you could leave your quest being like, boom, there's my compass. I know I need to do this because I've got this thing to bring to the world, or to this person to help, or this thing to resolve before I go. And then once you resolve that, you no longer to have that fear of death, because you made amends with that.
And so I'll say it again. So fear, false evidence appearing real. So let's use the bear example. There's there's no bear. The reality is there's actually no bear. The story is I'm going to get eaten by bears. There's so many bears around here. The bear's going to come to my tent tonight. There's going to be like, and I'm not saying we don't want to have awareness that there are bears in this landscape, but when we're working with fear with bears, I'm just going to use that as an example. Until the bear actually shows up, we're just really playing a script in our mind. And so replace that bear with so many other things in our lives until they're actually in our direct reality. We're actually just fueling stories of fear. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, like the bear situation, like from all my time in the backcountry, like I don't walk with that fear anymore. Like I feel so, if I see a bear, I know what to do. I'm comfortable with bears. I respect bears. We prepare to, respect the bear with the campsite while we're walking. We're prepared. We know what to do if we do see a bear. If I wasn't there, I would just be walking around constantly in fear of a bear, right? Also, bird language and animal tracking, all these things help with this side of like bear fear. But do you understand how until it's actually in
Mm-hmm.
our physical reality, we're just playing and fueling fear and stories. So,
Yeah, so some of the common fears that he mentions, and I think go into what we're doing here, is the fear of failure. Um, and failure, people see it as a negative outcome, but it's very crucial for your growth. Um, a lot of successful people have failed over and over. Michael Jordan gets cut from his high school basketball team. Amazon started in a little office and no one thought he would make it. It was like a joke. He had a handwritten sign in his office, and now they're huge. All these super successful athletes and business people, and just everyday people, moms and dads. There's that fear of failure, but they managed to graduate through that. And he has a quote here from the book: "Failure is a stepping stone to success. Each failure teaches you something valuable."
and it's how you meet the failure, you know? I guess one example of the quest. So there was someone in the past who I guess wanted to leave in the middle of their quest. And like that happened. Okay, great. We met them where they were at, and then we moved forward in a different way, and then they finished their quest. And that was great. And like you could call that failure. That person could be like, "Oh, I failed this thing." but it's truly our perception of what it is. I mean, most people aren't even in this circle. You know, I said that day one, most people aren't even saying yes to something like this. Not even the quest, just like the first 3 days that we've had, you know, like most people aren't even saying or willing to go.
To accept that fear, yeah, and meet it and take the first step. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
99.9% of people didn't even make it here.
Here. Yeah.
And like, not that there's not people who are interested in people, you know, we hear it all the time, oh my god, that sounds amazing, but when push comes to shove, the fear
Creeps up.
got them.
Yeah.
And the next one he has here is fear of rejection. So it can prevent us from pursuing relationships, careers, and opportunities. And rejection is often not as personal as it feels and can lead to new, better suited opportunities. So his quote from the book is, rejection is not a reflection of your worth, but a redirection to something better.
So again, you can see how the fear of failure, of rejection, like what if these are actually just
Teachers.
indications of a new direction on your path? So, you know, Jeff and I, we can be honest with Finding Polaris. So the first year I tried this program thing, the structure of a program, and it didn't really work. It was it was a little bit too intense. I wanted people to come and be with me for a month at a time. And I had some interest here and there, but most people were saying, Dariya, like, I can't do a month. Like, that's too long. And so, you know, I could have just given up and like stayed on that. Like, this is the program style that I thrive in, that I like. This is like, but no, I took the feedback and, you know, rejection from some people who were like, I can't do that. And then the next year, I adapted again. And then last year, we adapted again. And then, you know, we just keep adapting based on what's coming
Mm-hmm.
into our spheres, what's working really well, what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And
And we're not surrounded by 50 people right now.
yeah,
You know, not that we want to host that many people on a vision quest,
no,
but
that
like,
would never
you know,
happen.
we
But
have to deal with a lot of
yeah.
rejection in something so deep as this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The people who say yes, oh, and like, I'm really interested, and then you kind of walk them through it, similar to, you know, the calls we had with you guys, and then it's like, oh, yeah, it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, you know, darn, like, we love doing this, and it's
Mm-hmm.
less about the money, it's more about, you know, the after effect that you guys will experience when you go home. But yeah, that fear of rejection is there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can echo that. Many times I've changed jobs looking for greener pastures, and then you know, you end up let go from a place that you just started at, and it's like, oh man, like the fear just sinks in. Oh, I made the wrong decision. How am I gonna pay my bills? Like, oh, I'm screwed. How am I gonna find another job? And like all these things sink in, and then, you know, okay, don't let it get a grip on me, and I just, you know, hustle, focus, hand out resumes, like do follow all the steps, and then lo and behold, something better comes along. And it's like, oh, okay, like maybe I wasn't supposed to be there. Oh, it seemed really nice,
Mm-hmm.
seemed cool, but like, oh, if they didn't, you know, let me go here, I would never ended up in this way better spot.
And going back to what we spoke to yesterday with being in a state of victim. So life happens for me, life versus life happens to me. Same with working with fear. This fear is showing up for me to transform, for me for growth. Because if that
Mm.
growth or that expansion wasn't there, you wouldn't be holding the fear. And it's not that you just walk around your whole life fearless, of course, but I think you get the
So I
message.
think this is a big one, and we can all understand, is fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
The unknown can be intimidating, but it also holds limitless potential. Embracing uncertainty can lead to new discoveries and personal growth. In a quote from Fearvana, the unknown is where all possibilities exist. It is the realm of creation and innovation. And you know, pick anything, the bear, the bugs, what's the weather going to be? Oh, I'm going to go out in these 10 days, and what if it rains every day? Or, you know, what if it's a heat wave for 10 days? And, you know, all these unknowns
Mm-hmm.
can creep in, but, you know, you just surrender, and now we're here, and we're just dealing with it. You know, we went to the lake or the river several times the last 2 days. It's like, okay, well, you know, we don't need to be scared. we don't need to pack up and all go home. It's like, okay, well, let's deal with what God's given us. Like, what's on our plate? Okay, cool. There's no raspberries here, and no pin cherries. So it's like, okay, well, it looks like we're not all snacking off the trees and the bushes this time. So we're just going to adjust.
And I think the more, as you can imagine, the more we get comfortable in especially the fear of the unknown, I think is a big one. Because if you think of being rejected or failure, both of those are kind of rooted in the unknown. It's like, you don't know, someone rejects you, oh no, then you say all these stories. Or
you don't get a contract at work, it's like, oh shit, like, am I gonna lose my job? Like, what's gonna happen to the employees? Like, oh no, oh no. Or what happens if this person rejects me and I don't get into this friend group? Or maybe you don't get into this big opportunity. Maybe you're pushed out of an opportunity to be like at a market or some type of venue.
So there's a lot with the fear of the unknown, but I think when we get more comfortable there, it's easier to sit there. So I bet like day 1 versus day 3 of you being in silence all day is going to feel a very different. It might feel more awkward on day 1. Maybe by day 4, you won't even want to talk to us. You'll be so comfortable in that. Maybe it's not the silence. Maybe it's the fasting, or, whatever. It could be so many things.
So overcoming these fears. So here's some examples of, by taking action and accepting it and using it as our compass or motivation and energy to move forward, getting real with ourselves. So fear of wildlife. So the statistics on bear attacks, they're extremely rare in North America. Chances of being injured by a bear is 1 in 2.1 million. And, no one wants to be that one, but that just goes to show how rare that is.
So an example, so I shared that I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. So I was hiking in the backcountry, deep wilderness for about 6 months. I saw bears twice on that trip. And guess where I was hiking by? A really big landfill.
So yeah, by understanding bears and their environment, their habitat, their behaviors, you could dissolve that fear. Like Dariya said, like, after being in the backcountry for so long, it's like, where bears are, how they act. They're probably more near landfills than they are just out in the wild trying to avoid us, the
and
dog.
The wild bears don't want to interact with us either. They don't. And like, we are also, I think oftentimes we forget that we're all peeing and pooing around this pit, right? You don't think the bear picks up on that? The bear picks up on this fire. The bear picks up on the energy when we stand. Like, we're quite big mammals also. The bear doesn't have a hospital to go to if that bear gets injured.
And in reality, they're more afraid of us and want to keep their distance. And, they know that they get hunted. They're not looking to become the next meal.
I think, speaking of bears, in my story, it just highlights it. It's when we get them domesticated or used to like landfills and stuff, then of course, when they're coming into this, it's just a completely different situation. But in a wild landscape like that, they actually really don't want to interact with us. And then just to plug the animal tracking and bird language piece here, when we learn those skills, so with the animal tracking, there's the joke, it's like, oh, is it a squirrel or a bear? Well, if you actually hear and understand those movement patterns through the bush, you'll know, oh, that's a squirrel moving. Oh, that's a large, even if you've never seen a bear, you'll understand, okay, a big mammal walking through the bush actually doesn't sound like the squirrel that is just hopping. And I know we use that one as like a joke. I think it's just like a baseline joke, which is nice. But even with bird language, so when we teach bird language, we try to tell people, and this was my experience. So when you're hiking by yourself in the woods, if you understand the language of the birds actually alarm for predators. So if you understand what birds are alarming, then when a forest is in baseline, you actually don't have to be alert. So it's all these skills and awareness strategies that just support we're more in tune with our landscape, with the birds and maybe the tracks or the scat or whatever, and we understand these bigger patterns, so then we really don't have to be scared
Mm-hmm.
because we're so in tune. But if we hear the alarms go off, or maybe it's like the forest goes completely silent, then maybe you can kind of tune in and be like, hey, okay, maybe there's something. And then you can kind of build up your like response, I guess, to a potential predator.
Mm-hmm. And you know, if you truly were afraid, you know, the best thing you could do before coming out here is educating yourself and becoming aware. So the fear of getting lost,
Mm-hmm.
like the reality is, with tools and maps and compasses, the 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 risk of getting lost is pretty minimal. Like
Well, and
just
yeah,
look where we are. Like, you know, there's only so many routes. You just follow the road unless you decide to just start bushwhacking it. Likely not going to get lost out here. And then just basic navigation skills. We showed you where the sun was. We determined where east, north, south, and west was. So you can just from that little, you know, thing, we can know, like, if you start going in a certain direction, okay, like, oh, I need to go back this way. Which way was it on the road? Okay, yeah, like, where's the sun? You know, maybe, oh, there's that tree behind me.
and truth be told, like the fear of getting lost, most of the time. So here's an example. So when we were living at the land in Manitoulin, so we had one straight path to get to the water where we were living, and if you would walk, so just say a new person comes to the land, you would walk that path. If everyone was talking, blah 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 blah
Mm,
blah blah, they would get to the path, and then when they would go home, they would be like, "Oh, where am I going? Like which direction to get home?" If you walked with a new person who's never been there in silence, and you didn't have all those distractions, and people were aware of their body, of their senses, of the landscape, you walk with silence, the likelihood that that person didn't know where to go back was much, much lower than the person who's just like, oh, hey, Darian, like just
mm,
so happy to be there and just not even tuning in. Because we're all mammals. We know how to be aware of our landscapes, and no mammal, especially, I mean, we're domesticated in many ways. We don't want to get lost. So
mm,
it's natural, but when we're totally distracted, that's when the issues come up.
And in reality, most people are found within 24 hours. So
Yeah.
even if you were to start walking, you know, there's the whistle, there's all these things that we did to prepare
Mhm.
you where, you know, you might walk somewhere and be like, oh God, I'm lost. Okay, whoa, okay, I can see the sun. I know kind of where I came from. I have my whistle because they told me to bring one. It's like, oh, okay, like I'm actually not in danger. I don't need to be afraid because we took all these steps to be prepared. And then there's a fear of the elements, the weather, the terrain. Um, in reality, you know, our modern clothes, they protect us from the weather. They're good. You know, they dry quickly. They keep the sun off of us. So, you know, we could check the weather before we came. There's all these things where we can eliminate that fear that creeps up by just, you know, we pack proper clothes. You know, we stay in the shade. We brought tents with rain flies on them. All these things. Like, okay, do we need to be afraid of the weather? Not really. In reality, we did all these things to prepare for it, so that wouldn't become a problem.
Yeah, and I think even with like fear of weather, it's it goes back to awareness in your body too. So if you, let's just say, like right now, I'm getting hot because
Mm-hmm.
the sun's
Yeah.
beating down on me. If I wasn't doing this talk right now, I would take this long sleeve off and go into a tank top and maybe change into shorts or something like that, because my body's cueing me that, like, hey Daria, you're getting a little bit hot. And so I will take that cue as a response. So we want to be so in tune. This is where we talk about the sensitivity in our body, so that I can just pick up on all these signals. And if I'm not feeling well, or if my signals are going off baseline, I respond to them and I bring myself back, because our body, well, there's a really amazing book that's called "The Body Keeps the Store." The body keeps the score, and it's mostly about health problems and how anything that comes up in your body is just a reflection of something deeper underneath. And like, great, our bodies are so smart, and they're telling us all the time what's going on, and it's our job to listen, whether that's your thermal dynamics of just like thermoregulating yourself with your body, or hydration is another one, like feeling early when you're starting to, that headache starting to creep up versus letting it go, way too far. So just remembering that awareness with ourselves all the time. And it's really our job to listen and respond.
So what are some practical steps to transform this fear that's going to come up in our vision quest in the 10 days we're together after this? So education and preparation, learning about where we are. We've been talking about the plants. We've been talking about the environment. We went to the river. We've been doing this constantly since we started. You guys got the plans and paperwork when you signed up that told you what gear to bring. So all these little things should slowly be eliminating the fear as you got out here. Like, okay, I brought the proper footwear, I brought clothes, okay, I brought this, am I gonna be sitting on a rock? You guys brought chairs. So it's like all these little things. And then we're here educating you about different things. So okay, now there's a little less to be afraid about, because now you're getting more information around these areas. And then starting small. So you guys are here, you're not embarking on a vision quest by yourself,
or on the first day.
Or on the first
Yeah.
day. So we're taking small steps. It's digestible. We're not jumping in head first. We're not taking too big of a leap. Next is mindfulness and relaxation techniques. So we did the qigong yesterday. We were all kind of probably pissed off with the bugs, but with doing that, it was kind of like, okay, like back to my breathing. Yeah, these bugs are bugging me. And as we go through today and the rest of the days, you're going to carry that through with you of like, okay, like, whoa, I'm getting all flustered. I need to maybe I'll just go for a walk, and then I'll breathe and I'll relax, and I'll, okay, maybe let's change this thing. This morning we were getting bothered by the bugs. We're like, okay, let's bundle up, get the heck out of the tent and go for a walk. We got to change our mind state, and then
decided to do a smoky fire.
Yeah. So having these mindfulness and breathing relaxation techniques with you on your quest, whether it's oh my gosh, I'm so hungry, I'm thirsty, is that a bear I just heard? Like, okay, whoa. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting lost. Like, okay, what do I really need to be afraid of? Do I have water? Do I need more water? What's the real danger here? And just having that awareness with your situation.
Because whether or not the fear actually does show up, so like the bear, whether or not the bear actually shows up or not, if the bear shows up, do you want to be shaking and freaking out and like in a state of fear? No, even if the bear shows up, or like the forest fire situation that we got aware of last night, it's like, okay, well, if the forest fire shows up or not, even if the fire gets closer, we still all want to be in a calm state, a regulated state where we can think and then move, not panic, so that we can move through what we need to do to get out of that state. So whether it's a bigger, larger threat like a forest fire, or just a mental, emotional fear that comes up of like failure, just realizing no matter what happens, let's keep our body calm and regulated, and it'll show up with breath, with heart rate, tension, all these things.
Yeah, and also, like I said, like, you guys aren't embarking on a journey like this by yourselves. So you've found guides and mentors. So, we're here looking over you. So it's not, okay, like friends, family, I'm just going into the woods by myself. I'll be in this general area and not sure what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go out there. There's another layer of safety there. You're with people, hopefully you can trust that. They're not to say holding your hand, but we're guiding you. We're making sure you're safe and you're in a good spot. So that's just another layer of safety where it's like, okay, I don't need to be super afraid that there's people on call for me right now. I'm not in immediate danger. So
anything else?
Yeah, transforming fear. We talked about that. Maybe we'll give an inspirational closing to it. Embrace the unknown and trust in your ability to adapt and overcome. Remember, the most rewarding experiences often lie just beyond our comfort zones. And I think that's kind of why we're all here right now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we'd love to be in the AC with our baby right now, but you know, this is a, an experience for us as well. It's not just for you guys. You know, we have to hold this place. We have to, you know, hold space for you guys and facilitate for you. So it's a journey for us as well. And we'll close, I guess, with a quote from the book. Greatness lies on the other side of fear. Embrace it and let it lead you to your highest potential.